back to the first episode of Rebooting of Season 2. And we are actually live in person for this episode with a very special person, someone who I've been friends with for a long, long time. He's worked in law enforcement and digital forensics, and he's now a regular on TV and in newspapers. I'm of course talking about Jake Moore. Welcome, Jake.
Hello, thank you.
Great to have you here.
Oh, thanks very much.
So the first question I always ask all my guests is, how would your family describe what you do for a living?
Well, funnily enough, actually I've heard my daughter describe what I do to her friend. She's 7, and once her friend asked her what I do, and she replied, she said, and this is genuine, she said to her friend, "My dad keeps the internet safe." And I thought, I'm going to keep that. I should put it on my website. I love that, and I guess she's right. I like to help people understand the internet more, understand the risks, and better protect themselves.
I love that. I think that should go on your LinkedIn, and I think it should also go on your business card.
Yeah,
keeping the internet safe, Jake Moore. Keeping the internet safe. Yeah, I like it. But we worked in the police together. That's how we first met. And I think you remember we did a course, and if you remember, I think I went through like 2 massive A4 pads of paper with my.
I think that's because I can't write. My hand doesn't seem to work anymore. They only allowed pen and paper, and I looked at it, and after I'd written my name, my hand hurt. So it's like buying birthday cards these days. I can't do it. I can write happy, and then by the time I get to birthday, my hand is aching, and so I just go, you know what? I'll just text them.
Yeah, you should speak to Graham Cooley, because he talks about how fit his hands are for playing chess. So Graham, get some tips across to Jake for sure. And I want to talk first about a funny story, and I know that I bring this up a lot.
Yeah. But
there was a funny story when you were in the digital forensics unit that I think it would be sad for our listeners not to witness the greatness of.
Yeah. Okay, this is a great story. I still chuckle about this today. So I was working in digital forensics, Dorset Police. I needed a new laptop to have a play with. I didn't want anything fancy. This is back in around 2012. I decided just to buy anything that was going on eBay. And what I used to do when I worked in the police, if I bought anything on eBay, I wanted to send it to my address at the police station, because it stops, you'd hope, stolen property being sent to a police station. So I bought this Windows 7 laptop. It was a couple of years old at the time when I got it. I opened it up at work, no BitLocker, but it was Windows pass locked. Okay, so I couldn't open it. I wasn't sent any password. And it was a female name and a female picture, but I bought it off this guy. I thought, well, could be anyone related to him. I tried contacting him for the password. Nothing. So I thought, well, I'm sat in the digital forensics unit, well, why don't I just take the hard drive out and use the tools at my disposal? So I took the hard drive out, I put it through, and I started to look at all the files that are on there, and I found a CV. I thought this would be good, I'll get some information on who this was, maybe I can ring the person up and ask for some help. They've sold it to me, they're going to help me, surely. And so I found a CV, found the girl's name, and I rang her up and I said, "Hey, you haven't lost or sold a laptop recently, have you?" And she said, "Oh my God, everything got stolen from my house 2 weeks ago. I mean, everything. Bike, TV, laptop, the lot." I said, "Well, I think I've got your laptop in my hands." And she said, "Oh my God, that's amazing." So I then contacted her local police force, because it wasn't in Dorset. I gave them a ring and I said, "Look, strange story, but I've got this laptop and I've got the address of the person that sold it to me." So I let them have all the information. The local police force then went round to this guy's house and they found everything that had been stolen 2 weeks prior, and we got to give the laptop back. I got my money back from eBay, so I was all happy. But then I thought to myself, oh my God, criminals, what are you doing? He sent that, okay? The address to send a laptop that he has stolen went to Jake Moore, High-Tech Crime Unit, Dorset Police, in Ferndown, Dorset. Now, what was he thinking? Oh, okay, I've stolen a laptop. I'm going to send it to a digital forensics unit. I mean, this was
the
brilliant.
OPSEC is just on another level.
I know, I love it. So it just goes to show that cyber criminals come in all colours and varieties.
So there was a funny story that one of my DIs in the police told me, which was that they'd been trying to solve this particular cybercrime case that they were working on, and they were a bit kind of, they sort of knew roughly who it might be, but they didn't really have any evidence. And they put a job posting up, completely unrelated, for the unit. And this guy applies for the job, and under experience details this hack that they're actually investigating. And they say to him, they think like, oh, this has got to be, he's having a laugh or something, something's going on here. So they called him up and they said about the job, and they said, look, we need to bring you in for an interview. And he thought they were interviewing him for the job.
Amazing.
So he shows up at the police station in a suit.
Yeah.
With a CV, all ready for this interview, and it's a very different interview that plans out. So it goes to show the OPSEC on some of these things is terrible. But obviously, I think probably most of the people who are viewing this are going to go, okay, so you work for the police, but what have the police really done? What are they doing for cybercrime? Are they making any difference? And I want to talk to you about one really concerning statistic that I found. It was from the Register, and they claim that 1 million reports go into action fraud in a year, and of those, only 2% get given to the police. So, I mean, and that's 2% of what gets reported.
Yeah. Well, the biggest issue I think there is those crimes that are getting forwarded from action fraud to the police are the ones where they think there may be a chance of finding the offenders. Now, a lot of those reports will go into action fraud and say, I've had a phishing email. They may even say, I've not clicked on it. So some do get reported and nothing was actually stolen. But then also those times when people say, I've clicked on that Netflix email, I've actually given away my credit card details, and now I've seen money taken, that will get inputted into action fraud. But it still might not end up with the police, because the police look at it and go, it's still too difficult for us to go and look into it. And so they're really looking for the localised cyber offences, especially with local forces, which I was. I know you were in a slightly different part of the police, but I was particularly looking at localised cybercrime, which involved people that knew each other. Maybe they were hacking someone else or trying to extort money out of someone that they actually physically knew. But when we don't know the offenders, that's where the other 98% usually are. And that's the difficulty with the police, because they're basically sat there twiddling their thumbs going, well, what can we do? You know, the internet is a wonderful thing, but it's also created that anonymous area that makes these cyber criminals work perfectly in complete disguise.
Yeah.
And throwing off the scent, very, very difficult. And then the police get a bad rap because they're not able to go and get those guys in. You know, you're always seeing people on the TV go, I can't believe it, my elderly mother got rinsed of £100,000 from a romance fraud or whatever it was. And yeah, of course, we feel sorry for those people. You know, and then we think, well, what can we do about it? We don't know where those offenders are. So we've really got to instill protection advice. I know prevention is better than cure, but it really is so important. So we've got to keep preventing this from happening, and we will win this fight. I'm pretty confident on it. It might sound crazy, but I really think we can.
I love your enthusiasm.
I'm sure of it. Because if everyone knew the information that we know, and it's, you know, even the lower level stuff, then we can really start to protect those people. There comes a tipping point, I think, where people go, you know what, I got it.
Yeah.
I understand a password manager, I understand 2FA. And then they start to carry on with that frame of mind, and that thought process will then make them far safer in the future.
Yeah. The other issue that people don't understand is that with normal crime, there's lots of lines of inquiry.
Yeah.
There's lots of things you can go look at, fingerprints,
Sure.
you can look at CCTV.
Yeah.
And all of that disappears, and I think it is very difficult. And I know from, in my experience, you know, when, even if you locate this person in a country, even if that does happen, you've then got to issue an I-law to that country. You've then got to try and get their law enforcement to cooperate, collect the evidence in the same way that we need it presented in our courts, arrest the person, and, you know, that's years.
This is it. You're right. I mean, fingerprints, fibres, shoe prints. You know, there's loads of physical evidence from classic crimes that we're so used to. And when I started in the police, I actually started in the burglary unit.
Oh, really?
I learnt how burglars work. It's fascinating to think how a criminal thinks. For the reasons why they want to go and burgle a house, right way through to how they might try and mitigate being caught. So usually there'd be a fingerprint or some blood, DNA left behind that we then throw into a system, lo and behold, click of a button later, effectively, if you ever watch those CSI programs, it doesn't take too long to go and find out who that person might be. But yeah, if you take out all the old school evidence, you've got police officers scratching their heads going, what on earth are we going to do? I've got the chief on my back. Because digital offences have just gone through the roof. I mean, I don't even know the stats. They're just changing all the time. It's in the millions, right? I think it's over 50% of crime now has a digital element attached to it. And so if you've got that amount of data, your phones, your USB sticks, everyone has tons of hard drives and laptops and all sorts. It's too much for the police to actually go through image and start looking for that needle in the haystack. Sometimes they don't even know what the needle looks like in that haystack. It's such a minefield. So from the forensic side in digital forensics, it is just a nightmare. And I find it frustrating. I mean, one of the reasons I left is because I realised that I was going to court loads at the start, giving evidence to Crown Court, and I'd get there and I'd have all my evidence in my reports. And I found it. I found his search history. I found his chat history. I found his log on, log off times. It was just a ton of evidence that I just have there. And usually, just by turning up, you'd get the defendant go guilty because he goes, well, he's given advice not even to step into the courtroom. Just go now, okay? Knock off 10% of your time. But what we're finding now is that people aren't going to court as much because the evidence isn't found. Mm-hmm. And that really started to bug me. I didn't realise, so I was 10 years or so in the digital forensics unit. Towards the end, I don't think I went for 2 years.
Wow.
Because we got some of the low-level ones in. Yeah, some people would go guilty beforehand, of course. But we weren't getting people into the court because we were struggling to find the data. I mean, you've got the likes of Tor, and any anonymous browsing tool that's used illicitly is going to make it far, far more difficult for the police to go and get that evidence.
Yeah.
Before, they'd think, you know what, I'm going to go private browsing. No one can find that. and we would still have tools that could carve out what we needed from that. Especially, in the RAM, there's loads and loads of data that you could go and use against them. And it was great. I've been on bus when you go into someone's house, you get the computer, it's still on, you can get loads of information from that, it's fantastic. But few and far between. Now, it was getting more and more difficult. They'd understand how encryption would be to their benefit. If it's a certain short password, those encryption keys, we could break them using the National Technical Assistance Centre, NTAC. Fantastic. They got some supercomputers, they'd run it through for us. Sometimes we get, within a week, get into a hard drive that's completely full disk encrypted. But what we found is there's so many that we couldn't.
Right.
If they've got 32 character passwords, we're looking at it going, well, we can brute force it for a long, long time. I mean, how long you got? It became a nightmare. So we'd have these computers and you go back to them and say to the offenders, what's your password? and they go, oh, I've forgotten it. Well, you've got section 49 where you can say, right, I'm going to do you for up to 5 years now. It was 2 years when it came out, but yeah, we could put you away for that. But I don't know of any cases that have happened, particularly in Dorset. It's very, very difficult. You may be able to see some file names that have gone between computer and hard drive, but that's not to say you know what those files actually were, because a file name is something, and a good barrister would just say, well, you don't know what the hell that was.
Right, exactly.
It was a nightmare.
And I think that's why we're also seeing such a growth in ransomware, because ransomware isn't like this really innovative new thing, right? It's really antiquated, actually. But yeah, Garmin, literally, really recently, $10 million or so. Yeah. Travelex, $4 million. All these companies paying millions and millions of dollars in ransoms. And I know we've talked about this, an awful lot. But I mean, where do we go with that? Because in some ways, by paying the ransom, which is the easy option for a lot of companies, you are facilitating this criminal marketplace, which the cops can't necessarily penetrate.
Yeah.
So, you know, are we sort of feeding it in a sense?
See, ransomware is one of my biggest bugbears. For years, I've been just going crazy with it. I can't believe it's still happening. Take away the extortion of data for one moment, but the actual ransomware itself, oh my God, I can't believe in 2020, these huge companies are still being affected by it. You know, aren't they doing their due diligence on their own data and testing it? I mean, you're an advocate of going to do a simulation attack on a business to see what would happen if X, Y, and Z were to occur. How quickly would we get back up and running? Well, if they can't get back up and running without paying a ransom, then something's wrong. Okay?
Right.
And it doesn't cost anywhere near the ransom amounts to get back up and be secure before it happens. Now, lots of people in a company can be susceptible to all sorts of ransomware attacks, and those social engineering attacks are very, very clever. If Twitter were to get hacked recently via a phone call, then that's slightly understandable. You're going to get people attacking people with the right user access. But if they're able to override it and it still occur and then they lose everything, then I don't think that should be happening right now. We need to be making people understand how to mitigate the whole ransomware. But if we're paying them off, the cycle continues. Okay, so insurers are jumping on the bandwagon on ransomware. They're seeing this as a line of defense.
Right.
You know, you could argue that anti-ransomware is a good insurance for data, but the insurers are going, no. We are the fail-safe. You lose all your data, don't worry. We'll reimburse you if you pay it, and this is legal, which I find crazy. They're able to reimburse the demands and get the data back. You know, you can never be absolutely 100% certain you're going to get the data back, but I think we know that Garmin's data did come back. And so they've paid off a certain amount. I know 10 million was at the top. I know they do negotiate a little bit, it probably came down a touch. And then they're back up and running. But they're paying it out. Insurers, I mean, they're fueling this cycle again. Maybe they should be looking at one day in the future. They should pick a date and say, right, from that date in, 2022, from now on, paying ransoms is going to be illegal.
Yeah.
I think that would give them enough time to get there in order and really think about it and test it, give them enough time. By 2022, you could eradicate ransomware by saying, right, from now on, if you do lose your data, I'm sorry guys, but it's gone.
So I think, obviously, ransomware is a huge issue. It's plaguing companies that you wouldn't have really thought it would be plaguing. But I think the other issue that we have is an accusation that was made in a couple of papers that the UK is the safest place to commit cybercrime now.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people have brought up the issue with like the TalkTalk hackers who were young and who got off pretty freely from that situation. How do we balance? Because clearly a 16-year-old, 13-year-old who's DDoSed a website, we're not going to throw them in jail. That's a terrible idea, right? But on the other scale, if someone has stolen, I don't know, NHS data, patient data, and that whatever their age is, and done actual harm by publishing it, are we saying that they shouldn't go to jail? And what's the message that we really should be sending?
This is such a difficult area. I mean, the police do have their prevention team that deal with that age group that are clearly extremely sophisticated. You know, they know what they're doing.
Right.
They understand that it's breaking the law, but they don't think anything will happen to them. And I'd like to even say that I take my hat off to them because they're so good at what they do. But they really need to be thinking about, well, where's that line being crossed? Because obviously, please do not go and break any laws. It could really affect your future. But those people sometimes start to help the police. They sometimes they have programs generated for those, like Catch Me If You Can. You know, once he gets caught, He's done his time. He then goes and helps the police, which is a fascinating story of many years ago. The same thing is kind of happening again now. We're seeing those people with incredible skill sets going and helping the police, which is what I think we need to be directing them with. But it's those ones that don't like law enforcement from the get-go. And they're the ones that I think we're always going to struggle with. And if they get some good legal help when it does go to court, then I must say that I'm kind of on the fence, because you don't want to go and waste someone's life because of a mistake they made when they were 15 or 16. You know, lots of people in their teenage years do silly things, but they get away with it.
Right.
It doesn't affect them, and they then forget about them in later life. But
thank God social media wasn't around when I was a teenager, can I just point out?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And you're right, it's the same kind of thing. You know, if these people many years later are trying to go for a job and they've got a criminal record, I don't know what you can really do with that, because they are clearly amazing at what they do.
And I think that's the other problem, because I've done some talks in schools, and the funny thing is that, us as sort of on the white hat side of things, we all sort of say, oh, it's great, you help secure the companies and you do all this sort of amazing work that we do. But they don't care. Because the first question I get without fail is, what car do you drive? How much money do you make in a year?
Right.
And I think almost we're kind of pitching this wrong to the younger generation, because actually they're not thinking, oh, that would be so lovely to, do all of those great jobs. Maybe on some level they are, but I think ultimately, when you were young, if someone said to you, Jake, you can earn $500,000 a year and have a Ferrari, you'd be like, do it now, what is it? So, I think we've kind of got to change the way we talk to the kids a little bit as well, because I think we're kind of pitching it to them as if they were adults.
You're absolutely right, and I think we do really need to work with schools a lot. Teachers, the amount of teachers I hear now that, actually go back a few years, you'd find parents go, maths, oh God, I'm terrible at maths. And kids hear that, right? Kids hear, oh, my mum's terrible at maths, so I might not bother as well. And then what if their dad says, oh, IT, God, I'm a complete technophobe. Then the kids are going to go, oh, no, whatever. And you're seeing teachers are like this, kind of the same too. They've got a book that they're using to try and help them. But when the kids are cleverer than the teachers, it's the only subject that I know of that the kids are far better than the teachers from the moment they start there. You wouldn't imagine someone going into a science lesson for the first day in year 10 and being cleverer than the professor at the front of the class. I mean, it's unheard of.
Right.
But you go into IT, then the kids are coming through and go, yeah, let's go and take the website down. And the guy at the front's going, oh, I don't even know what that means. This is where we need some serious help. Again, maybe throw some more money into IT teachers. Get those teachers up to date, up to speed, and in a way that's interactive. Make it fun. We need to be making kids enjoy it and see the white hack side of things. Loads of people want to go into cyber forensics and cybersecurity, and there are some great jobs out there. But we need to be influencing them with the right role models.
Yeah, and I think also some countries I've seen have done we have in the UK something called a GCSE, which is kind of 16-year-old major exams. And they do an equivalent, but in cybersecurity, and it's taught at a young age as a mandatory subject. And actually, in a couple of countries, they now say that it's a literacy in the same way that language and maths and science is. Yeah. And I think you have a twofold problem then. One, your kids are savvier at cybersecurity, so they're more secure as adults. But B, you also fill the sort of tech gap, the skills gap, by all these people who are doing cybersecurity as a mandatory subject, where maybe they wouldn't do.
I mean, that is a huge problem with the skills gap. Also between male and female, we want to make everything as even as possible, but we just find that some people, whatever age they are, they don't want to learn it. I found this in the police, actually. I'd have so many people over a certain age would go, oh, Jake will help us out. Oh, Jake, what's happened? I mean, I felt that I was on the IT help desk. I'd have so many people ringing me up. Got a detective on the line. Oh, cool, he must want some support on his investigation. No? Just turn it off and on again, mate. Yeah. That's the kind of thing that I was getting, because they thought that I was the young guy. I'm not even the youngest guy, you know. There are people far better than me that are 10, 20 years younger that are coming up with it. But it's about making people excited about it. And there are so many people older that just think, nah, this is going to be nuts. But I always do the mum test, okay? My mum and my dad are over 70, and 10 years ago, they were rubbish with anything computing, right? I mean, so much that I got frustrated when they'd ring me up. I would just log in over TeamViewer and just do it for them. And then one day I thought, you know what? I need to teach them what to do.
Right.
And now, 10 years later, I can go around their house and I'll walk into the garden, they'll both be there, they won't look up at me, they're both on their tablets and their laptops and their phones, they've got 3 devices each, and they go, all right, Jake, and they don't even look. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. They know what they're doing, but they're totally savvy, they are totally
Awesome.
secure, and I love it. And I thought, and if you told me that 10 years ago, I'd have got no chance. But if my mum can do it, she's 73, and she is down with the kids when it comes to her devices, then anyone can learn it.
That's a really good saying, actually. I always think that we need to rein it back in, because sometimes we get a little bit overexcited in cybersecurity with threats as well, and we go, this is a major threat, and people haven't even signed up for 2FA, so I mean, you know, let's be a bit realistic
5%
here.
I think it is.
Yeah. So would you recommend, if someone was watching and wanting to start in cybersecurity, would you recommend going into the police?
If there's an opening in the police, of course, go for it. You know, they're still a great organisation. They need lots of people with the lust for life and the lust to catch those criminals, because it does take a lot of time to go and get them. You know, some cases that I was working on would take up to 2 years.
Yeah.
So it's not just a short game. And you'd be working on multiple cases at the same time, so you're juggling lots and lots. But it's very rewarding, and that's where I think working for local government, right the way up to the big government, I think they might not pay very well, but it is extremely rewarding stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I think I found it more rewarding than in the private sector, probably on a sort of personal level and on an interest level probably as well. So where can people go to read about you, follow you?
Okay, I'm on Twitter, so Jake_Moore UK, and then I'm on LinkedIn, and then I've got my website, which is jakemoore.uk.
Thank you very much, and all the links from the show are going to be in the description below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll see you next episode. Thank you very much, Jake.
Thank you.
Bye everyone.